Hello everyone and welcome to the Spawning Pit. I am Spawn and today we will be looking at the Humble Plaguebearer. Plaguebearer stats are the most similar to Space Marines out of all the demons. 4 strength, 4 toughness, 1 wound, 1 attack, except for the champion who has 2 attacks, and their base size are all the same as Space Marines, which is the standard for elite infantry. However, the similarities end there. They have a 4-up weapon skill, 5-inch movement, and their champion has an extra wound. 5-inch movement is a tad slow, but it can be made up for when advancing if one tends to roll slightly better than below average, due to their instrument. 4-up weapon skill is the accuracy of cultists, which is the definition of middling. The extra wound helps in certain situations, and ballistic skill doesn't matter since they have no ranged weapons. And neither does their armor save, since they are demons and therefore have the demonic rule, which gives a better invuln. They can also be taken in hordes of 10 to 30 models. This means that in combat they will always outnumber other comparable units. Nurgle demons also always get the disgustingly resilient rule, which is a 5-up feel no pain. Simply looking at stats, however, doesn't do a unit justice though. The demonic icon makes it so rolls of 1 when taking a morale test are an auto pass, while simultaneously regaining d6 models. Cloud of Flies gives your opponent a -1 to hit modifier if there are 20 or more models in the unit, which can be stacked with other -1 modifiers. Instrument of Chaos allows you to add 1 to advance and charge rolls. This ability can also be stacked. The unit also has the ability to summon if it doesn't move, which can be used to strategic advantage or to quickly throw a different unit onto an open objective. Plaguebearers are only equipped with Plague Swords, and the unit costs 81 points for 10 and 221 points for 30, if you include at least 1 icon bearer and 1 instrument player along with the champion. So then, why do I like these guys so much? They look pretty bog standard as far as infantry goes, aside from 3 small rules and their large unit size. Well, to be honest, it is the potential of the unit that impresses me. It's the units that can support the Plaguebearers that make them excel. At their best, this unit can have a 3-up rerolling ones to hit, 5-ups give extra attacks, a 2-up rerolling all fails for MEQ and GEQ, and dealing double damage, which can be further doubled with a stratagem on 5-ups, while always going first in combat with the ability to fall back and charge in the same turn. Having a 7-inch movement, 6 toughness, 10 leadership, and being able to roll 2 dice for icon and take the lowest. They would also have a -2 to hit modifier, becoming a -3 if in combat, on top of a rerolling 1's 5-up feel no pain. All that on one unit is ridiculous, and when at that full potential, the unit is near unstoppable. But in order to get that, you need a Demon Prince, Slopty Bilepiper, Epidemus, Spoilpox Scrivener, Foul Blightspawn, a Poxbringer, Feculent Narma, and Scabathrax. Tactically, this means that Plaguebearers are an incredibly scary unit for any horde or elite army, while simultaneously being a Swiss Army knife for your army. Need a unit dead? Have a Spoilpox Scrivener, a Demon Prince, and a Poxbringer casting Virulent Blessing on them, and you have all your damage output buffs. Need them to counter a charge? Add in a Foul Blightspawn, and the unit charging you will usually not be able to go first and then be killed in the charge. Need them to hold an objective? While I personally wouldn't use them for this purpose, you can have a Great Unclean One, or better yet Scabathrax, on the objective and surround it with Plaguebearers, then cast Miasma of Pestilence on them. You can even have Scabathrax summon them in the movement phase if you feel lucky, though Rotigus is better at this. With that, Orcs and Guardsmen can't even shoot at you, while everyone else has a -2 to hit modifier until you get below 20 models, and good luck scaring them with Leadership 10 and being that tough. Do you need a late game clincher? Grab Epidemus along with your damage output buffers, and at best, by turn 4, they will be unstoppable, and at worst, they become a better harassing unit. It's not all picnics and daisies with the Plaguebearers. They do have a couple weaknesses. For one, Disgustingly Resilient doesn't work well against multi-damage weapons like plasma guns and Deathwatch grenade launchers. They also don't fare too well against high dice volume heading their way. The saying goes in wargaming, it doesn't matter how good your save is or how tough you are. If I throw a bucket of dice at you, you're going to fail at some point. You also are never going to want to use them at anything less than max unit capacity, since that gives you a decent buffer till your staying power ends up taking a 17% drop off, which doesn't sound significant on paper, but you can feel it in game. As soon as you hit 19 models, you're either using them as OBSEC and having them stay put, or they still have a character running around them, which will enable you to attempt to successfully harass shooting units. But at that point, Nurglings are actually better at doing this job. This doesn't mean that Plaguebearers are bad to use as OBSEC or harassment, but Nurglings are, to my knowledge, the most point efficient unit to use for those purposes. Another weakness is that they are only capable of close combat, and they are slow without any movement buffs, which means that if you don't position them right during deployment, or if you don't summon them into the right position, then about 1/10 to 1/3 of your points become useless for a majority of the game. My advice for using Plaguebearers is to plan ahead always and be aggressive early. In deployment, you want to put them down as close to last as possible, if at all, since you can deep strike them. Deep striking Plaguebearers along with your offensive buffers is expensive command points wise, but it can give you the psychological advantage when playing against another army that wants to play defensively. Be warned though about employing this tactic, since it can be dangerous and leave you exposed to certain armies that also want to be aggressive but are better than you at it. Also remember that being aggressive doesn't always mean being offensive. For Papa Nurgle, being aggressive can mean dropping units on objectives so that the enemy will have to overcome the strengths of your army in order to win, which isn't easy by any means. Keep in mind that at their best, this unit's damage output on average will be 76% of your total attacks, with 20 to 39% chance to gain extra attacks, and the same percentage chance for gaining double damage when wounding against your preferred targets. What all that means is that the unit will usually be able to make up a good majority of their statistical loss in attacks by gaining attacks from rolling 5s and 6s while being buffed. At base, their damage output drops down to 37.5% of total attacks, with no ability to make up the loss. The implication of this is that once they lose their support, they will not function as an offensive unit for the purposes of killing other units. This is why I say be aggressive early, because as soon as your opponent cuts the head off of your snake, the function of your unit fundamentally changes to a middling unit with a purely defensive role, so don't let that surprise you. You will also want to be able to predict your opponent well if you are going to be deploying them normally, since they can be pretty slow and have a large footprint early on. Thank you for seeing through my first video. I know I have a lot to learn about making YouTube videos and making them more visually interesting, but I was kind of struggling to figure out what pictures to use with what I was talking about. So hopefully this works okay for you guys. Hopefully I'll see you guys in part 2, which will be coming out next week. For all those interested, part 2 will not be an extension of the review, but a painting tutorial. So I'll see you there.